The restroom door swung open with a creak that echoed through the hushed family gathering at Grandpa Ellis's sprawling ranch in rural Texas. Sydney Harper, her heart pounding like a war drum, stepped out only to freeze under the piercing glare of her grandfather, his weathered face twisted in disbelief and rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing in the ladies' room, boy?" he bellowed, his voice cutting through the air like a whip, drawing every eye in the crowded living room to them. Sydney's world tilted on its axis. At 25, she had come out as a lesbian 2 years ago, but this being misgendered in her own family's home, accused of invading a space that felt like her sanctuary, hit like a gut punch. She stood there, her auburn hair tied back in a ponytail, wearing a simple sundress that suddenly felt like armor too thin for battle. The room fell silent, aunts and uncles exchanging uneasy glances, while her mother, Margaret, averted her eyes, pretending to fuss with the Thanksgiving turkey platter. But Sydney didn't crumble. Instead, a fire ignited in her chest, the kind that had been smoldering for years under layers of forced smiles and swallowed truths. "Grandpa," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands, "I'm not a boy. I'm your granddaughter, and I've always been. If you can't see that, maybe it's time America does." That night, after the awkward dinner where whispers replaced conversation, Sydney drove back to her apartment in Austin, her mind racing. She pulled over on the highway, tears blurring the stars, and recorded a video on her phone, pouring out the humiliation, the years of hiding her love for women, the constant fear of rejection. She hit post on social media without a second thought. By morning, it had gone viral, shared by influencers, debated on morning shows, her face splashed across screens from coast to coast. "Stunned America," the headline screamed, but for Sydney, it was just the beginning of a storm she hadn't anticipated. Back in her cozy one-bedroom, Sydney paced the floor, her phone buzzing incessantly. Notifications flooded in. Support from strangers, vitriol from trolls, and a missed call from Taylor Voss, her secret girlfriend of 6 months. Taylor, with her sharp wit and unyielding loyalty, had been the one bright spot in Sydney's chaotic life. They met at a queer book club in the city, where Taylor's confident laugh and piercing blue eyes drew Sydney in like a moth to flame. But their relationship was hidden, buried under Sydney's fear of family backlash. Now, with the video out there, everything was exposed. Sydney's inner voice screamed at her. "What have you done? You've dragged Taylor into this mess without warning. Is this bravery or recklessness?" She called Taylor back, her voice cracking. "Tay, I didn't mean for it to blow up like this." Taylor's response was immediate, laced with concern but no anger. "Sid, breathe. I'm coming over." Within an hour, Taylor was at the door, her short blonde hair tousled from the drive, wearing her favorite band tee and jeans that hugged her athletic frame. They collapsed onto the couch, Taylor pulling Sydney into her arms. "You stood up for yourself," Taylor whispered, her fingers tracing soothing circles on Sydney's back. "That's huge. But now what? Your family's going to freak." Sydney pulled away, her mind swirling with doubts. Deep down, she knew Taylor was right. Her family, rooted in conservative values, had always tiptoed around her sexuality like it was a phase. Grandpa Ellis, a Vietnam vet with rigid ideas of gender and morality, was the patriarch whose word was law. Coming out had already strained things. Holidays felt like minefields, but this public call-out? It was a declaration of war. Sydney thought about her mother, who loved her but prioritized peace over principle, and her father, absent since the divorce, who sent occasional checks but no real support. What price would she pay for this authenticity? Would it cost her family or worse, push Taylor away if the scrutiny became too much? As the days blurred, media requests poured in. Sydney agreed to an interview with a national network, her nerves frayed. Sitting under bright studio lights, she recounted the incident, her voice gaining strength. "It's not just about a restroom," she said. "It's about being seen for who I am. Loving who I love shouldn't make me a target." The interviewer nodded sympathetically, but Sydney's thoughts raced. Am I exploiting my pain for attention? Or am I fighting for others like me? Taylor watched from home, pride swelling in her chest, but worry gnawed at her. She had her own secrets. A job at a conservative law firm where being out could jeopardize her career. Supporting Sydney publicly meant risking it all. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Grandpa Ellis fumed over his morning coffee, the video playing on his ancient laptop. "Ungrateful girl," he muttered, his hands shaking. He called Margaret, demanding she fix this mess. Margaret, torn between her daughter and her father, felt the weight of generations pressing down. She loved Sydney, but the family's reputation in their small town was everything. Whispers at church, stares at the grocery store. How could she endure it? In her quiet moments, Margaret questioned her own silence. Had she failed as a mother by not standing up sooner? Sydney's video sparked a nationwide debate. Protests erupted in cities, signs reading "Love is love," clashing with counter-protests decrying moral decay. Sydney scrolled through comments, a mix of empowerment and hate that left her raw. One message stood out, from her cousin, who confessed her own struggles with identity. It gave Sydney hope, but the isolation crept in. Taylor tried to be there, but their dates turned into strategy sessions, how to handle the fallout, when to go public with their relationship. Sydney wondered, is love worth this chaos? Or am I just dragging everyone down with me? The pressure built as Thanksgiving faded into December. Sydney received a letter from Grandpa Ellis, not an apology, but a summons to a family meeting. "We need to talk," it read, "before you destroy us all." Her heart sank. Attending meant facing the firing squad. Skipping meant severing ties forever. Taylor urged her to go, for closure if nothing else. But inside, Taylor battled her own demons. If Sydney went alone, would she crack? And if Taylor joined, would it out her too soon? The decisions loomed, each one a potential betrayal of self or loved one. Sydney lay awake that night, her mind a whirlwind. What if standing up means standing alone? Sydney stared at the letter in her hand, the paper crinkling under her grip as if it were a live wire. The family meeting was set for the following weekend at the ranch, a place that once held memories of carefree summers now tainted by judgment. She tossed it onto the kitchen counter, her thoughts spiraling. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about proving I'm not the villain they're painting me to be. Taylor, sensing the turmoil, wrapped her arms around Sydney from behind. "You don't have to go," she murmured, her breath warm against Sydney's neck. But Sydney knew she did. Running would confirm every doubt she'd ever had about her courage. The drive to the ranch felt eternal, the Texas landscape blurring past like a forgotten dream. Taylor had offered to come, but Sydney insisted she stay behind. "This is my fight," she said, though inwardly she feared Taylor's presence would escalate things. What if Grandpa lashed out at her too? What if the family saw their love as the root of all evil? Arriving at the familiar gravel driveway, Sydney's stomach knotted. The house loomed, lights glowing warmly, belying the cold reception awaiting. Inside, the family sat in a semicircle in the living room, faces stern. Grandpa Ellis at the head, his Bible on the coffee table like a weapon. Margaret beside him, eyes downcast. Uncles and aunts filling the chairs, their expressions a mix of pity and disapproval. No one greeted her warmly. Sydney took a seat, her voice steady. "I'm here. Let's talk." Grandpa leaned forward, his voice gravelly. "That video of yours, it's brought shame on this family. Parading your lifestyle like it's something to be proud of." The word stung, but Sydney met his gaze. "My lifestyle? You mean loving someone? Being true to myself?" Her inner monologue raged. "He's not seeing me. He's seeing his fears. But how do I break through without breaking us?" Uncle Robert chimed in. "Think about the kids, Sydney. Your cousins look up to you. This confusion you're spreading." "Confusion?" Sydney's blood boiled. "It's not confusion. It's clarity. I've hidden who I am for too long because of people like you." Margaret finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Honey, we love you. But this public spectacle, it's hurting everyone. Can't you just keep it private?" Sydney's heart ached at her mother's plea. Private meant invisible, and she'd been invisible for years, dating men to fit in, suppressing her attraction to women until it nearly broke her. Meeting Taylor had been a revelation, a quiet revolution in her soul. But now, exposing it all felt like a double-edged sword. "Mom, privacy didn't protect me when Grandpa shamed me in front of everyone. Why should I hide to make you comfortable?" The argument escalated, voices overlapping in a cacophony of accusations. Grandpa quoted scripture, uncles talked about traditional values, aunts worried about town gossip. Sydney defended herself, recounting years of microaggressions, the The snide comments, the forced blind dates. But doubt crept in. Am I pushing too hard? Will this drive a permanent wedge? As the meeting dragged on, Sydney realized the real battle was internal, balancing her truth with the love she still held for her family. Leaving the ranch exhausted and unresolved, Sydney called Taylor. It was a disaster, she admitted, tears flowing. Taylor listened, her own resolve hardening. Back in Austin, they met at a quiet cafe, away from prying eyes. Taylor confessed, I've been thinking. My firm. They're not progressive. If I come out in support of you publicly, I could lose my job. Sydney's world cracked further. Then don't. I don't want you to sacrifice for me. But Taylor's eyes flashed with determination. Love isn't about safety, Sid. It's about standing together. Yet inside, Taylor questioned. Is this loyalty or self-sabotage? My career is my independence. Losing it means depending on her, and what if we fall apart? The video's ripple effects continued. Sydney was invited to speak at a LGBTQ+ rally in Dallas, her story inspiring crowds. Standing on stage, microphone in hand, she felt empowered, but the high was fleeting. Hate mail arrived. Threats that made her double-check locks at night. One letter, anonymous, read, "Freaks like you don't belong." It shook her, making her wonder if the exposure was worth the danger. Taylor, seeing the toll, suggested therapy, but Sydney resisted. Admitting weakness feels like defeat. Meanwhile, Margaret wrestled with her conscience. She visited Sydney unannounced, bearing homemade cookies as a peace offering. I watched your interview, she said softly. I'm proud of your strength but scared for you. Sydney softened, sharing stories of her relationship with Taylor. How it felt right, natural. Margaret listened, tears in her eyes, recalling her own youthful dreams crushed by societal expectations. I married your father because it was expected, she confessed. Don't make my mistakes. It was a breakthrough but fragile. Margaret left promising to talk to Grandpa, but doubt lingered. Can I change him or am I just enabling? As winter set in, Sydney and Taylor's relationship strained under the spotlight. A tabloid article outed Taylor as the mystery girlfriend, forcing her hand. At work, colleagues whispered her boss called her in. We value discretion here, he said pointedly. Taylor's mind raced. Defend my love or protect my future? She chose defiance, posting a supportive message online, but the cost loomed. Sydney felt guilty. I've pulled her into my chaos. Is this fair? The decisions piled up, each one a test of their bond. Taylor's post went live that evening, a simple photo of them holding hands with a caption. Love wins no matter the storm. Likes poured in, but so did the backlash. At her firm, the atmosphere chilled overnight. Colleagues avoided her. Memos bypassed her desk. Taylor's inner turmoil boiled. I've worked years for this position. Was one post worth risking it all? She confronted her boss, voice firm. My personal life doesn't affect my work. He sighed. In this field, perception is everything. Clients are conservative. The implication was clear. Conform or leave. Sydney, sensing Taylor's distress, tried to make amends. They spent the weekend in a rented cabin outside Austin, attempting normalcy. But conversations circled back to the fallout. I never wanted this for you, Sydney said, guilt heavy in her tone. Taylor forced a smile. We're in this together. Yet privately, Taylor resented the upheaval. Her family, liberal on the surface but distant, offered lukewarm support via texts. Her mother called, Be careful, dear. Not everyone understands. Understand? Taylor thought bitterly. They don't even try. Back in the city, Sydney's advocacy grew. She joined a panel discussion on gender and sexuality, debating with conservatives who echoed her grandfather's views. One panelist argued, restrooms are about safety, not feelings. Sydney countered sharply, safety? Try being shamed by your own blood. The audience applauded, but exhaustion set in. Post-event, she scrolled through messages, one from Grandpa Ellis surprisingly. Saw you on TV. We need to talk privately. Hope flickered but caution prevailed. Is this a trap, or genuine? The private meeting happened at a neutral diner midway between Austin and the ranch. Grandpa arrived alone, looking older, frielier. They ordered coffee, tension thick. That video hurt, he admitted gruffly. Made me look like a monster. Sydney's response was measured. You hurt me first. He nodded slowly, sharing stories of his youth. Strict upbringing wore traumas that hardened him. Change is hard at my age, he said. Sydney's mind whirled. Empathy or excuse? She pushed back. Hard doesn't mean impossible. Accept me or lose me. He left without promises, but the seed was planted. Margaret, encouraged by the progress, organized a small family dinner, hoping for reconciliation. Sydney brought Taylor, introducing her formally. This is my girlfriend, she said, heart racing. Reactions varied. Some polite nods, others awkward silence. Uncle Robert made a snide remark about phases, igniting Taylor's fury. It's not a phase, it's who we are. The evening devolved into arguments, old wounds reopening. Sydney defended Taylor but inside questioned. Am I forcing acceptance too soon? Will this tear us apart? Taylor's job situation worsened. A major client pulled out, citing distractions. Her boss suggested a leave of absence. Devastated, Taylor confided in Sydney. I might have to quit. Sydney felt responsible, offering to step back from the spotlight. No, Taylor insisted. That would mean they win. But the strain showed. Fewer intimate moments, more heated discussions. Taylor's thoughts darkened. What if our love can't survive this? Am I betraying myself by staying? Nationwide, Sydney's story fueled legislative debates. Bills on restroom access and LGBTQ+ rights gained traction, her face becoming a symbol. Invitations to testify in Washington came, overwhelming her. She accepted, flying out with Taylor's encouragement. On the plane, doubts assailed. Who am I to speak for everyone? What if I fail? In D.C., she met activists, sharing stories of similar struggles. It bolstered her, but the pressure mounted. Back home, Grandpa Ellis watched the hearings on TV conflicted. Margaret urged him. She's your blood. Support her. He grumbled but wrote a letter, this time apologetic. I was wrong. Proud of you. Sydney read it tearfully, a glimmer of hope. But reality intruded. A protest turned violent outside her apartment, chants of hate echoing. Taylor rushed home, finding Sydney shaken. We need to move, Taylor said. Sydney agreed but wondered. Running or surviving? The relocation to a quieter suburb brought temporary peace, but internal conflicts persisted. Taylor interviewed for new jobs, facing subtle discrimination. Experience great, but your profile, one recruiter hinted. Frustration built. Why must I pay for loving her? Sydney noticed the distance, initiating a heart-to-heart. Are we okay? Taylor hesitated. I love you, but this is hard. Honesty stung, forcing Sydney to confront. Have I been selfish? Is love enough? As spring approached, a betrayal surfaced. A family member leaked private emails to the media, twisting Sydney's words. Headlines screamed family feud. Lesbian activists hidden agenda. Devastated, Sydney traced it to Uncle Robert, motivated by resentment. Confrontation via phone was brutal. You betrayed us, he retorted. You're the one destroying tradition. The family splintered further, Margaret caught in the middle. Her choice: side with Sydney or preserve unity. She chose Sydney, cutting ties with Robert, but the cost was loneliness. The leaked emails dominated the news cycle, painting Sydney as manipulative. Social media erupted, supporters rallying with Stand with Sydney, while detractors amplified the lies. Sydney's mental health plummeted, nights filled with anxiety attacks. Taylor held her through them, whispering reassurances, but her own patience wore thin. We can't keep living like this, Taylor confessed one dawn. Sydney nodded, tears streaming. This fight is consuming us. What have I sacrificed? Our peace, our future. Determined to reclaim control, Sydney held a press conference, addressing the leaks head-on. These are distortions, she stated firmly. But the real issue is why my love is debatable. The response was mixed, applause from allies, boos from opponents. Grandpa Ellis, watching from home, felt a shift. He called Sydney afterward. That took guts. I'm sorry for my part. It was a tentative bridge, but healing would take time. Sydney's inner voice urged caution. Forgiveness or naivety? Taylor's job search yielded an offer from a progressive nonprofit. Lower pay but aligned values. She accepted, relief washing over her. This could be our fresh start, she told Sydney. But the move required relocation to San Francisco, uprooting their lives. Sydney hesitated. Leave Texas, my roots? Or stay and suffocate? The decision weighed heavy, discussions turning tense. You'd be leaving your family, Taylor pointed out. Sydney retorted. The family that barely accepts me? Doubt crept. Is this escape or abandonment? Margaret visited before the move, bearing gifts and regrets. I've been talking to your grandpa. He's trying. Sydney softened, sharing plans. San Francisco? So far, Margaret worried. But she hugged them both, whispering to Taylor, take care of her. It was approval, hard won. As Margaret left, she pondered. Have I lost my daughter to progress, or gained her through understanding? The move to San Francisco brought new challenges. The city buzzed with acceptance, but anonymity was lost. People recognized Sydney, some praising, others harassing. Taylor thrived at work, but Sydney struggled to find purpose beyond activism. She started a blog chronicling experiences, but imposter syndrome nagged. Am I qualified, or just infamous? Their relationship, tested by distance from old wounds, deepened in intimacy but frayed in arguments over trivialities masking deeper fears. A surprise visit from Grandpa Ellis marked a turning point. He arrived unannounced, hat in hand. Wanted to see your new place, he grumbled. Over dinner, conversations flowed awkwardly at first, then honestly. He admitted, war changed me, made me rigid. Sydney shared her journey. Discovering her sexuality in college, the pain of denial. Taylor added her perspective, her voice steady. Grandpa listened, a rarity. As he left, he hugged Sydney. You're still my girl. Tears flowed. Forgiveness bloomed, but scars remained. Sydney reflected. Redemption possible, but at what cost to my soul? Yet peace was short-lived. A counter-movement targeted Sydney online, doxing their address. Threats escalated, forcing them to enhance security. Taylor's anxiety spiked. This isn't living. Sydney felt defeated. My stand has endangered us. Is activism worth our safety? They considered stepping back, but a rally invitation pulled Sydney in. Speaking to thousands, she felt alive, purpose renewed. Taylor watched proudly but inwardly questioned. When does support become enabling danger? Internal mouthwash peaked during a heated argument. You're addicted to the fight, Taylor accused. Sydney snapped back. And you're hiding behind normalcy. Words hung heavy, silence following. They slept apart that night, each wrestling demons. Taylor thought. Love her but love myself too. Sydney pondered. Have I lost sight of us in the cause? Reconciliation came slowly, apologies exchanged, promises to prioritize their bond. Family ties mended gradually. Margaret visited San Francisco, bonding with Taylor over coffee. You're good for her, she said. Grandpa sent letters, small gestures of acceptance. But Uncle Robert's betrayal lingered, a reminder of irreparable breaks. Sydney chose distance, focusing on chosen family. The trade-off stung. Gain allies, lose blood ties? As months passed, Sydney's story faded from headlines, allowing breathing room. She and Taylor built a life, weekend hikes, quiet evenings. But reflections haunted. The restroom incident sparked change, but at personal expense. Sydney wondered, was my response brave or impulsive? Taylor echoed similar thoughts, their love stronger for the trials. Yet, in quiet moments, doubts resurfaced. What if we chose differently? With the spotlight dimming, Sydney and Taylor settled into a rhythm in San Francisco, their apartment a sanctuary amid the city's hustle. Sydney took a job at an LGBTQ+ advocacy group, channeling her energy constructively. Taylor excelled at the nonprofit, her passion reignited. Mornings started with coffee and kisses, evenings with shared dreams. But echoes of the past lingered, reminders in news clips or random encounters. Sydney's mind often wandered. We've survived, but have we truly won? A family reunion invitation arrived. Grandpa Ellis's handwriting shaky but sincere. Come home for summer, it read. Sydney debated. Return to the source of pain? Taylor encouraged. Closure could heal. They went, nerves taut. The ranch felt different. Warmer welcomes, fewer judgments. Grandpa pulled Sydney aside. I've been reading. Learning. Conversations delved deep, apologies flowing. Uncle Robert was absent, his absence a silent acknowledgement of boundaries. Margaret beamed, seeing harmony, yet Sydney questioned. True change or surface? During the visit, a local event invited Sydney to speak. She accepted, Taylor by her side. The crowd, mixed but attentive, listened as she recounted her journey. From shame to empowerment. Choices define us, she said. Mine stunned some, saved others. Applause rang, but a heckler shouted, abomination. Security intervened, but the words pierced. Taylor squeezed her hand. We're stronger together. Inside, Taylor admitted fear. Will this ever end? Back in San Francisco, life normalized, but moral dilemmas persisted. Sydney received offers for a book deal. Tempting but invasive. Share our story, she asked Taylor. Only if we're ready, Taylor replied. They declined, prioritizing privacy. Sydney reflected. Fame's allure versus peace's value? Friendships formed in the community, support networks buffering isolation. Yet betrayals from the past taught caution. A former ally turned critic online, accusing Sydney of opportunism. Hurt, she responded privately. We all make mistakes. Forgiveness came hard. Hold grudges or release. Grandpa's health declined, prompting more visits. Sydney cared for him, roles reversing. He confided regrets. Wasted years on pride. She forgave, but scars reminded. Damage done. Taylor supported, but her own family dynamics surfaced. Distant parents reaching out sporadically. They accept us now, she said wryly. Sydney wondered. Acceptance born of convenience? Highs and lows intertwined. A legislative win expanded rights. Felt personal. Sydney celebrated with Taylor, toasting progress. But losses hit hard. A friend's suicide due to rejection. Grief-fueled resolve. Fight on or burn out. Their relationship evolved, deepened by trials. Anniversaries marked not just love, but survival. We chose each other, Taylor said. Sydney agreed but pondered, at what price? Friends envied their bond, unaware of cracks mended. As years blurred, Sydney looked back. The restroom incident, a catalyst for change. It exposed hypocrisies, sparked dialogues but extracted tolls. Strained ties, lost security. She wrote in her journal. Was stunning America worth the personal devastation? In the end, Sydney and Taylor stood resilient. Loved their anchor amid storms. Family mended imperfectly, society shifted slowly. But the journey's cost lingered. A testament to choice's weight. Was Sydney's public defiance a heroic stand for authenticity? Or a reckless act that unnecessarily endangered those she loved?